And what they came up with was a conventional airplane, as conventional as the B-58 could be considered to be, and elected to suspend the weapon underneath it. Rather than have bombs mounted underneath or in a bomb bay, in order to retain the clean aerodynamics of the airplane, they made the weapon a totally separate device. Yet it was integral with the whole design of the airplane. And that separate device became what was known simply as the pod.
Carrying fuel as well as a nuclear payload, the entire pod was jettisoned when the bomb was dropped. This allowed the B-58 to make an even speedier escape and was an idea directly related to the old Parasite design. Although the airplane had been fully integrated with the pod and designed as such, the first tests and subsequent flight were performed without the pod.
First flight took place on November 11th, 1956, and that happened to be a Sunday, and it was very purposefully and consciously conducted on a Sunday. They knew there would be considerably less traffic on the highways and what have you. Things would just simply be quieter, and it would be a better time to undertake a major first flight effort. The man who actually made a lot of those kinds of decisions was Beryl Erickson, the test pilot, because the airplane was effectively his responsibility. Only very small or partial fuel load was put on board the airplane. It was decided not to use the afterburners during takeoff. The primary mission objective, as Beryl relayed to me a number of years ago, was simply to see if the airplane would fly.
The maiden flight went smoothly, but despite the success of the first flight, the airplane would not enter operational service for another 3 years. Several design decisions had been made without the luxury of empirical data. And although the Strategic Air Command was anxious to have the Hustler integrated into the fleet, it was clear a long and detailed test program was needed. The test program involved no fewer than 30 aircraft, and 7 of these early Hustlers were lost during the course of testing. Among the members of the elite team of pilots and flight engineers which explored the dynamics of the Hustler were Kenneth Timpson, Val Prowl, and J.D. McCachran. McCachran was the first to join Convair, and his partnership with test pilot Beryl Erickson resulted in his participation in a number of historic flights, including his contribution as flight systems engineer on the B-58's maiden flight.
Eventually I teamed up with Erickson, who came from American Airlines, and we flew on flight engineer for him on the XB-24, XB-32s, Model 39, and the flying boats and so forth. We came over to Fort Worth in '46, express purpose of flying the XB-36. We flew it with him on the first flight on the YB-60, YC-131, XC-99, and then he decided I should be with him on the B-58, second station as system specialist and flight observer.
I had previously been to the plant while the airplane was in mock-up stage when I was in the Air Force. In the meantime, I'd gone to work for Douglas Aircraft, and I was on the B-66 program when it completed. And I started making contacts with General Dynamics to see if I could get on the B-58, because I, too, thought it was such a beautiful airplane. And fortunately, they needed a pilot, and so I joined General Dynamics in the spring of 1958.
The pilots, the B-58 systems, or the B-58 organization, there wasn't a hero among them. There wasn't a real...
Yeah, that's right.
Not one of them was a personality that was one that took attention. You know, man, they always felt they were smooth and they slid into things nicely. There was not one guy that demanded a lot of attention.
To me, my reaction is that they were genuine professionals. Now, I realize that doesn't tell you much, but you take a guy that what he wants to do is really do his job as well as he can, and that's his goal, to get that job done and not claim any glory or any credit, but just get the job done as well as you can. And I think those old people, all those people were dedicated to that. They wanted that program to go.
The three-man crew of the B-58 had to be alert and in tune at all times. The airplane was not exceptionally difficult to fly, but when moving at Mach 2, there is no time to relax or lose focus. The navigator bombardier would sit in the second cockpit, his attention devoted to plotting and maintaining the flight plan and the deployment of the pod. The defense systems operator in the third cockpit assisted the pilot during the flight by reading checklists, as well as keeping the pilot aware of fuel consumption and altitude. But his primary duties during a mission centered on the defense systems. During the course of the test program, it became apparent to the crews that they were flying one of the most advanced airplanes, and they loved every minute of it.
Here's something no one likes to talk about. Every 30 seconds, someone with diabetes suffers an amputation. But if you're diabetic or know someone who is, here's some good news. Introducing Temp Touch, a breakthrough technology.
The potential of the B-58 kept the Air Force attentive to the airplane's progress and added pressure to those involved in the test program to keep it on schedule. The work could never have been successfully completed without the dedication and diligence of all involved, not just those who got to fly in the airplane. The B-58, during the test program and throughout its service with SAC, required substantial maintenance, and given the high speeds and deft maneuvers flown by those responsible for putting the airplane through its paces, the work of the ground crews was literally a matter of life or death. While some may have crumbled under such pressure, these men thrived.
Oh, the ground crew was amazing. They were also professionals. They really were just tremendous guys. And then the airplane, the program was over. All the stability control program was done, and there was only one more to go. And everybody was just extremely ecstatic, and happy. We did a great thing. And then about 2 days later, I found out that all these guys that were working on that airplane were going to be laid off. So there's parts of the program you don't like. At the end of the contract, the end of the program, there's nothing to do, and off they go. And I just ran all over the place, seeing if they can be done, but nothing could be done. And it's just a sad time to have
I think the key emotion was pride. Pride, because we were proud of that airplane.
One thing I might mention on the test program on number 1, again, being the first airplane to go Mach 2, the ground crew would always look at the paint, because depending how fast we had gone and the heat and the paint peeling off. And before long, they knew about, as soon as you climbed out, oh, you went to certain Mach today, didn't you? Because here's the paint peeling off, burned off. So they got with the program, you might say, the ground crew. Really.
In 1957, the time we're talking about is when the Cold War was probably still not at its peak as far as heat. But it certainly was getting near the top, and the B-58 was a method of delivering a nuclear bomb to a target with some pretty good degree or probability of getting a crew home and getting the airplane home and a crew home. Because if you only have a certain amount of assets, you'd like to get them back and use them again, and so the B-58 was that kind of an airplane. It had an air refueling system in it, and its use in the Air Force was you'd cruise out with tankers and you'd get a tank load of fuel just before you accelerated to go ahead and make a run and to drop your bomb on the target it was going in, and it could get back to a safe harbor some way. It also had a low altitude capability that was pretty significant. It could fly low altitude at 9.2?
Yeah.
9.2 Mach, which was pretty fast. You had a 500 or 200 or 100 feet, however low these guys wanted to get, and